Welcome, Ryan Ettridge. Really pleased that you could join us today. Ryan, you're pretty well known in the Brisbane cybersecurity circles, although I know you've moved on from that now. Today we're going to talk about burnout in cybersecurity and also burnout in the exec space as well.
Yeah.
Burnout's obviously very real across all areas of industry, but very, very real in cybersecurity at the moment, and something that's talked about a lot. Some would say it's endemic. Just to introduce yourself, Ryan, you're an experienced cybersecurity practitioner. By 31, you were a partner in cybersecurity at PwC. You were working 16-hour days. It's extremely long days.
Yeah.
You were chasing personal wins. You were very successful, but you mentioned that you're losing out on the personal front. And you talked about excessive habits, stress, and burnout. You left that organisation, 18 months ago?
End of 22.
Yeah, to set up a new passion project for you. Would you say it's a passion project?
We'll get to that,
yeah. Yeah, okay. And you set up an organisation called The Clear Leader.
Yeah.
And I welcome you today.
Yeah. Cheers.
Tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got to where you are.
Good. It's techie background. So started in university technology degrees, data communications.
Yep.
Got into before cyber was a thing. What was that? 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Right. You couldn't pick a cyber major at university back then, so you'd have to do cyber electives. Mm-hmm. And so one of the first gigs was desktop support, and pretty boring for someone who was ambitious. Mm-hmm. And so then that progressed through to specialising in cybersecurity and seeking to gain all of the cybersecurity certs, which I did. And that allowed me to shift from desktop support and network administration into becoming one of the first specialist cybersecurity engineers in Brizzy.
Yeah. So can you talk us, it's quite interesting how you made that transition, and there's a lot of people out there that are looking to transition into cyber. Any tips on, or can you share your experience of how you made that transition?
Well, if you were to pinpoint the decision criteria, it would be very difficult to do that 20 years ago. But there was this natural gravitation to the security space. Maybe it was to do with protection or the attraction to the security flavour.
Yeah.
But it did also have this uniqueness to it that not many people did, hence the uniqueness. So that attraction was some sort of resonance here that meant that's the thing that I want to go and do. So martial arts background, probably this strong persona that security resonated with at the time. But the leap then was really just this: what electives do you want to pick, and how can you make something that's unique for your brand? And for me, that was cybersecurity.
Okay.
So today, it's a little bit different because the pull back then wasn't as strong as it is now. Mm-hmm. Like, we didn't have that many CISOs, certainly not in Australia, let alone Brizzy.
Yeah.
And so it was a path that needed to be paved. And so those that were interested enough would actually become the leaders in that space. And so I was one of those that had the curiosity and the interest to take on the cyber journey. And so that's how that leap happened. But for those that are seeking to get into that space now, if you were to pick a particular industry that has a resonance for you, then if that's the one, then test it, follow the path. It has all the other benefits that surround the conventional means of a job. High demand, high pay.
Yeah.
And an ability to change the game now with the likes of AI and so on.
Yes.
So, yeah, if it resonates, go and do it.
Yeah, thanks for that. So you moved internally within an organisation, did you, into your first cybersecurity role?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then talk us through the path that you took from there.
Yeah, so from wasn't even a dedicated security role back then, but
okay.
I shifted from industry network and security engineer with all the certifications, that became quite attractive to a consulting organisation.
Yep.
Back then was Dimension Data, it's now NTT.
Yes.
And so I joined there as a contractor and found a rhythm in professional services and consulting that meant that I could get really good at that.
Yep.
I could hone the skills a little bit more and take on multiple organisations and get different perspectives and again start to build that bigger name that I was seeking to create without even knowing what exactly I wanted to do.
So that's quite interesting. You say you got there was a rhythm there. So you mean by that you were enjoying that journey in the consulting environment?
Well, on reflection, it's the there's an overachiever slant that's going to come out here as we chat.
Yep.
But the energy there was, how do you get really good at this particular role? And for me, it was by becoming known in the industry for a particular skill. So back then it was F5. So F5 technology certification was the WAF, web app firewalls, the intrusion management systems and load balancers and so on. And for, again, accidental reasons, became really good at that, got all the jobs, and people started to know Ryan for F5 security engineering.
Yep, which is a good tip as well.
Good tip.
Find out the what are the key products like your Splunks or your CrowdStrikes and become really good at it.
Well, it again depends on your goal. If your intention is to get really good at it, to again start to build a name for yourself in the cyber industry, then of course you if you're a jack of all trades, then it's very difficult to get noticed. And when you're starting your career, it's difficult to get really good at something if you continue just to spread your wings too far in the cyber world. So got really good at that. In the cyber and tech specialist area, once you start to build a name for yourself, it's really easy to sell.
Yeah.
It's not about trying to convince someone that they need to buy something. It's about talking through simply with the passion that you have about it, what's good about it, and then if you know a little bit about the competition, how it compares and why you would pick that. So there's this what you might call trust between the technical specialist and the decision maker on the client side.
Yeah.
So that became an easy shift from techie into pre-sales. So it went from security engineering, which is still a term used today, and solution architecture, which was the pre-sales role. And so that's someone who knows how different things compare, can prepare a solution on behalf of the client, give them a price, and then encourage them to make a decision that's based on something that's going to benefit them in the best way. And so it was really easy to sell.
Okay. And what do you think, just to hold on to that point there, with pre-sales roles, sometimes I think they're called solutions architects as well, pre-sales engineers, solutions architects. What do you, given you were very successful at it, what do you think are the key attributes required to be successful in the pre-sales role?
Put the customer first. This goes for any role, any sales role.
Yep.
Whether you're a CISO, whether you're a business owner, or whether you're a solution architect, if you don't have the consideration, empathy, you've got to give a shit. I don't know if we're allowed to swear on this show.
Yeah, you're fine.
Well, you've got to care about the customer. If you don't care about the customer, then they're going to see straight through it and they're going to go, this guy's just trying to sell me some shit.
Yeah.
All right. So fundamentally, if you care about the customer and you know your stuff, then you can put 1 + 1 together and you'll give them something that they were searching for, which was 2. So you really have to care about the customer, but you do have to know your stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So like any sales role, you've got to know what it is you're talking about, and you've got to have some skin in the game and credibility to be able to talk about that in front of the customer confidently. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
So the journey then went from engineering to architecture and the first taste of sales, because if you're a techie and traditionally you don't associate sales with a good vibe, right? It's like these guys are just trying to sell me some shit. But when you can realise the value of it, and of course, then you start to see that sales is just a natural process in terms of anything that you want to gain influence or win-win over. And so sales simply becomes part of life. And so the sales ability became just as easy for me as engineering did, because there was a healthy, respect's not the right word, but it was just like a love and a necessity of it, right? Like it's hell. And it meant if you didn't reject sales in a certain way and you could embrace it and accept it and integrate it, then you start to become quite creative in the sales space. So I could put multiple things together, including consulting engagements, engineering engagements, and so on, and create something that was new.
Yep.
And craft that in a way that customers would pay lots of money for. And so that in and of itself became quite an attractive skill. And I was put forward at that point for an executive MBA sponsored by NTT, or Dimension Data. So that was top 15% of performers in the organisation that were put forward and then were picked by the global council to say, these are the people we want to sponsor through the organisation. And so, of course, the return for the organisation is you get into leadership and management roles, which is what happened. So I then had this confidence as someone who could take a problem, work out a formula, apply the formula, like engineering, sales, and so on. And so it became this pattern. Give me a problem and I'll solve it. Give me another problem, I'll solve it. I'm going to prove it to you again that if you give me this thing, then I'll work out how to do it. So the MBA was really helpful.
And at this point, you were also leading teams.
Leading teams, so solution architect, senior solution architect, influential in the market, confident, maybe overconfident in some ways in the team. But again, that overconfidence meant that I could take what was learned in the MBA and say, look, I think we could do this with the practice. And, not coincidentally, the opportunity to step into the practice manager's role for the cyber team in that space opened up. And I put my name forward for that and said, here's how I'm going to do it, taking, you've invested in me and now I'm ready to apply this thing here. And got the gig at maybe 26, 27 years old, and doubled the gross profit in 2 years.
Okay.
Right, so it was, here's the three things I think we need to do, and I'm going to take literally all of the theory that was learned in the executive MBA and I'm going to apply it here, and it worked.
Okay, and if you don't mind me asking, at that point, had you started to see signs of any stress, or was that just part of the role that kept you going, that energy?
Well, so underneath all of this was, which I'll get to shortly, but there's this social avoidance. There's binge drinking habits, there's ways in which to deal with the pressure outside of this high performance persona that I was trying to build.
Yeah.
Right?
And you had built it.
Yes. And it was, but it wasn't built. It was in my mind at that stage, it was something that was just at the beginning. It was just at this cusp of something big happening. And then sure enough, a couple of years later, I got offered the role at PwC.
Okay.
Right? So there's this underlying lurking shame, guilt, sensation happening inside of me, which is, I don't want to be known as that party guy. I want to be known as this achiever.
So were you asking yourself, I'm not good enough yet?
No, I just wasn't. I was just avoiding it. And I was distracting myself away from these habits that were just unresourceful and unhelpful by proving to myself, really, and everyone else, proving to myself that I was very, very good in the work field, which I was. And so that became this crutch.
The work became the crutch?
Yeah, for sure. It became the way in which I could...
Were you a workaholic?
Got to the point. So at that point, you wouldn't say it was workaholism, but there was certainly this dichotomy between, working hard for sure, but then feeling like I deserved to let go. So work hard, play hard mindset. Now that dichotomy played off against each other to the point that if play hard got so hard, work would have to get even harder in my mind to actually offset it again.
Right. Okay.
Look what it did for work. Shot the fucking lights out. Hey, so so partner at 31, very confident in the work game. At that point, this is what's going through the head. At that point, can run a business. Give me a general manager's role or give me any role, and I'll run the business. I'll use the MBA skill set that I've proven once worked. Proven once, and I'll do it again, right? Mm-hmm. But because we were winning business in Brizzy against the Big Four, the invitation and the opportunity was, Ryan, come and do what you've done. Yep, we'll bring you in as a partner, and we want you to set up this team in Brisbane. And it was an inordinate amount of money for someone who was 31 years old, young kids at this point. So there's a real attraction to this conventional financial benefit that came with that, and I could do it. There's no reason why. This was just another organisation that needed to be navigated, even though actually I had absolutely no idea how a partnership worked. And in fact, the first time they approached me, I didn't know what a partner was.
Okay.
Right, so there's this, again, overconfident 31-year-old.
Tell us what a partner is in the Big Four.
Well, a partner is an owner of the business. A partner in a Big Four, anywhere in Australia between 500 and 1,000 partners that are part owners of the business.
Yeah.
And there's different types. Some are shareholders, some are, salary partners, but they are accountable for the performance of the business. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And how it differs, slightly from a corporate is that the structure is not that there's a direct reporting line or, a hierarchical structure, even though there is a bit of that. It's not the same hierarchical structure that exists in a corporate. Yeah. So before there was general managers and state managers and so on. That's not the case at the partnership. The partners essentially have equal voting rights and, are responsible and accountable for the performance of the overall business. And so that was quite different from a corporate because you then wear the risk. The partner actually wears the risk of the deliverable and the contract and the team and everything that goes around with that. So it did add another dimension to actually running a business in an organisation that was the largest professional services firm in the country, in the world, and not just that, it was one of the biggest, if not the biggest, audit and assurance firms as well. So there's this huge added risk and quality component to Big Four that doesn't exist in... It just doesn't exist to the same extent when you're not governed by the same regulators that an audit firm is. Yeah. So now you can hear the added pressure that's coming with this role, right? So yes, the confidence of this dude is, I can run this, give us the problem and I'll solve it. And because of the habits of Ryan, the failure wasn't an option, right? And that was part of the energy that drove the success in the other businesses was there was no way that this was going to fail. Why? Who knows? Who cares? But at that point, it was just, of course, we're going to do it. And if it means working hard, then, guys, I'm going to be offline for a bit outside of work, even though I already was. Offline for a bit because I've got to make this thing happen.
Yeah. So
right?
This is a new thing.
Yeah.
Failure wasn't an option.
Yeah.
So you're going to make this a success no matter what you're going to throw everything into this.
Of course, what an opportunity. It's like the pinnacle when you start to sit in there as an overachieving technical lover. This was like, this is your ticket to the lotto, go and make it work, right? So that meant taking the team of 3-ish to a credible size that we could apply for bids and win the bids. And, but there was a lot of pressure on Ryan because Ryan's the facilitator and the expert and the sales guy and the contract guy, and that's what's happening in this team at that time.
Yeah,
Ryan's
and you see that quite a lot with small business owners as well. In the cybersecurity world.
Yeah.
They're doing everything.
True. Yeah. So it was a similar mentality. It's like this new business inside a bigger business, certainly in Queensland, and it was Ryan taking this thing, leading the way, right?
Yeah.
Now the mindset at that point was Ryan is the expert.
Yeah.
And in the professional services partnershipy world, there is an expectation that the partner is still the professional expert.
Yeah, and I guess it would be similar to people that are going into new roles that are head of or general manager or CISO.
Yeah.
The buck stops with them.
It does. Slightly different in the corporates and even in industry to a certain extent, where you do become a manager and a general manager, and you do start to let go of the technical know-how.
Whereas you're expected to keep that.
Sure. Yeah. And some of the other partners might have mastered that a little better than a newbie, but the idea was that you really had to be the top of your game because it was you presenting at the boards.
And such a fast-changing industry as well.
Exactly. And even back then, right? Like as quick as it is now with the AIs and so on, back then it was, cyber insurance. It was all the stuff that boards were asking questions, and it's the partner that's coming into that to go and talk about it. So it was just, you've got to know what's going on in the industry as well as build the team, sales, marketing, people, operations, contracts, quality, risk, legal, doing all of this stuff.
Yeah.
So that was the added pressure of on the role, but there was never any doubt that it could be done. It was just that, okay, I've got a little bit more to go through, right? So over that period, you get into a habit of, I'll just do an extra hour in the office today, and that extra hour is going to be when I can get on top of what's coming tomorrow. Yeah? Got to a point where there were so many plates spinning, and I knew every single dollar that was coming in and going out and where people were and what bids we had and what clients were doing and all of this stuff. And so it got to this point of fitness where I could run this business and there wasn't anything that was happening in the business that I didn't know of. So almost this huge amount of necessary control that I felt that I was taking on this burden, right?
Yeah. So we're talking about you're now a year or two in to this role.
Yeah.
So it's humming.
It's probably took about 3 years to get it to a point where I was comfortable navigating the PwC beast. There was, all the initial conversations that Ryan's changing brand had happened in the 6 to 12 months. People were starting to come to us in terms of, hey, what are you guys doing? We want to come and work for you. So it was quite easy to hire people. And because there was clarity on where we were going for the next 2 or 3 years, it was, I need a director, I need a senior manager, I need this, I need 4 of those, and this is how we're going to do it. So if you want to get from 3 million to 5 million, then this is what we need to do. 1 + 1 = 2. Let's go and do it, right? So it gets to the point where the frog's boiling, right? So it's going from 8 to 9 hours a day. Actually, it was never 8. 9, 10, 11, 12 hours a day. Young kids at this point, so I've got, who knows, maybe 2 and a 4-year-old or 1 and 3-year-old at that point, and another one on the way. And so the wife was doing all of the home stuff, and Ryan was doing all of the PwC partner stuff.
Right.
And so the rewards financially were, of course, second to none. So it was it's like, okay, we're going to do this, we'll get the new house, we'll upgrade the car, we'll do all of the things that are going to set up the family for thriving, right?
And how fulfilled did you feel at that point?
Well, it wasn't really even a thought of fulfillment because there was almost like this point in my mind that once we've got the house and the car and the debts paid off and the family kind of settled, then there was an opportunity. It was almost like your traditional sense of retirement that you've got so it was like this race towards early financial retirement.
And you were happy at that time with the performance? Or at the peak, were you always wanting more? Never good enough?
So it got to the point where there was so much happening all the time. The habit was work was the priority. And anything that got in the way of work would come second.
Right.
Anything.
Okay. Can you give us examples of that?
Family.
How often do you see your kids?
Well, so there was never any sense that was missing, except that it was putting pressure on the wife at that point.
Okay.
Right. So then it's getting to the point where it's ended up becoming, let's say, 4 years in, 16-hour days, 7 days a week. And not that it felt like it had to be done. It was more like this is just what the role is. Because it's working. Weekends, 7 days. 7 days. And so the habit was, this is the frog So all of this is being expressed as the frog in the water still, right? Don't even know I'm drowning. Boiling, sorry. So
Boiling.
the frog is boiling like at 99.9 degrees, but I've learned how to live in that. The fitness, the frog's fitness. I've learned how to swim at 99.9 degrees.
And what were you utilising any techniques at that time to keep your stress levels down?
Not really, other than the typical physical ones that you would, the external exercise, reasonably good diet, pretty good sleep. But you see, it became this, I'm the star of the show, so I need to go to sleep, or just distract the kids for a while I do this report. Now, because I'm winning all of the work with the team, it was easy to write a proposal on a Friday night, the partner, write the proposal, get it signed off on the Saturday, start on the Sunday, finish it on the next Friday, and charge hundreds of thousands of dollars for it because it's a board report that needs to be done at the quality and the partner needs to present it. So when the overachiever is able to do that, rattle it off, make sure there's the contracts are absolutely bulletproof. This is all the plate spinning, know how everything's working, miss nothing, get it done, get the tick. How good? Except one night, or one morning early, 3:30 a.m., I'm up writing a report, and something just hit me in the face, and the question was, what the fuck are you doing? So now I'm starting to have flashes of the kids come up to me while I'm writing reports and I'm telling them to go away in frustration. So they want to play a card game with daddy and I'm, frowning at them. I'll do that in a minute, right? Is
that what you were doing though?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, well, probably not as bad or exaggerated as it was playing back in the mind then, but there's this huge guilt that's coming back. It's like, holy shit, hang on a minute, what's going on here?
What do you think brought that self-realisation on at that time?
Initially, it's like, surely I can't fit any more in the day. It might have been a glance at the 3:30 a.m. and I'm going, hang on a minute, what the fuck is this? Because the week or month before it was 4 o'clock. So it's getting longer and longer days and the frog's getting hotter and hotter. Who knows what? Who knows? Usually those moments of initial glimpses just come out of nowhere because it's like, what the fuck?
But it was a moment of clarity for you, that point in time.
Intense clarity. Intense clarity that was just a question that came out. It wasn't even Ryan's voice. It was, what the fuck are you doing? And so then there's the flashbacks of the wife and I having dinner while we're away at the anniversary dinner, and I got nothing to talk about except work. I'm listening to nothing. In fact, it's not even possible for me to hear what's happening because I'm thinking, like, all I can tell you is how successful the workday's been, right?
So success at work, it becomes all-encompassing.
Yeah.
Nothing else matters. Or it does matter, but it's
There's disconnection.
It's a disconnection,
There's huge disconnection with the family, and then there's huge disconnection from... So now it's gone from, oh, shit, the kids, oh, the wife, and now I've gone, I've disconnected from the social networks, pushed the extended family away because they're intruding on this high-performance executive role that I assumed, right? This is just how a partner works in Ryan's mind. And so now I'm like, hang on a minute, now I'm starting to see some of the other executives that are on their third, fourth, fifth marriages don't know their kids. They get to retirement, they're overweight, they're addicted to something, they're just in this state that if they lose that work identity as well, then their whole life is fucked. And now I can see me doing that.
Okay, yeah.
So now there's again this very obvious vision that that's the path that Ryan's heading down if we don't sort out the foundations that are happening that actually keep this thing running in the first place. And so the paradox... So then I actually sought help.
Can I just ask at this point?
Yes.
This wasn't a burnout for you, was it? This was a moment of clarity rather than you hadn't reached a point where you were...
On the floor, no.
No.
But
were you heading that way? Did you? Yeah.
I could see the cliff, like the toes are on the edge of the cliff.
Okay.
Flashes of mum's struggle with alcohol, and it was like, okay, I think I'm addicted to work. If I'm not addicted to work, I'm going to be addicted to something else.
So you've got
That
addictive
fundamental.
personality.
True, that was that's how you can describe it, as someone who attaches to something to form an identity with something, and of course the addiction in that case was generally avoidance of pain or seeking pleasure, right? And so in this case, it was avoidance.
How common do you think that is?
Addiction, massive, especially.
Well, yeah, but also what you just said, the attachment to something.
So.
That it becomes all consuming.
Just even hold that question, because I'll come back. There's a bigger answer to that. So so I sought help at that point, and the help was, to the corporate psychologist. I said, is this how every executive works? Is this the natural function of every executive, that if I'm going to keep going down this path, do I just need to get used to it? And she said, no. And initially I was seeking validation, like what I'm doing is okay. Because if she had told me that, yes, that's what it is, you just got to work out how to balance some stuff and take some leave, and I would have done that. But she said, no, sounds like you're out of sync with what's important to you, where you're going, and I would encourage you to get on this 2-day course. And sure enough, the 2-day course comes up on Friday. It's in Sydney. They're in Perth. So I went and did it, and it turned my whole life upside down.
What was the course?
The course, Corporate Evolution, it was at the time Inspired Leader Journey.
Okay.
Something like that. And so it gave me insight into what that core motivation was that was causing the behaviour. And so for me, it was the need to be liked. So the fat kid as a 7-year-old who felt out of place and, had to work a little bit harder to be noticed in the way that I wanted to be noticed. So there's this sense of rejection and not belonging. And so I'd learned ways to get noticed through overachieving.
Yeah. Okay.
So from the 7-year-old through to 18, the teens, that was the black belts. Failed that 3 times again, which before I'd learned how to navigate the failure was salt in the wound. But then it was like, okay, just how about you start running and start watching what you eat and work on your flexibility, and next thing, boom, black belt. Next thing, boom, second black belt. Yeah. Next thing, university. Smash university. Get the first job 15 minutes after the interview. Systems engineer, solution architect, practice manager, partner, boom. 1 + 1 = 2. This is the formula. So overachievement for me.
in the morning, doing a report.
Exactly, until you get too far, right? But the paradox in it is that this whole seeking to be liked through overachieving was actually pushing everyone away. So
were you being told that at the time by or those close to you that was happening?
Sure.
Yep.
You're working too much.
Yeah.
You're working too much. You're never here.
Yep.
We never hear from you, Ryan. Okay. Yeah. So this is the family and the social network. Where's Ryan, right? And so that was all justified here by doing lots of work and getting good and getting and it was rewarded for doing all of the hard work, right?
Sure.
All the other stuff's failing, and so there's this guilt that all the other stuff's failing. There's this guilt that I'd left everyone else high and dry. And so there was this initial acceptance and forgiveness of self that what I was doing was on behalf of trying to get the little kid to be liked. But again, the paradox was everyone was already there trying to like Ryan. But the fear was that if I wasn't overachieving, that I wouldn't be liked.
Yeah.
So I couldn't let that go. So it had to be this initial process of realizing that there's nothing missing. So this whole work is about understanding initially what that perceived missingness is that's driving everyone in their certain ways. Now, not everyone's the overachiever. Even people in executive roles aren't always there because they want the same story or recognition that Ryan was seeking, right?
Yes.
But their missingness might be it's not okay to let others down.
Yes.
Put everyone else first, which they do. And they're still really good at their technical role, but they put everyone else first and everyone loves them. But Christ, they can't make a decision. They need everyone else there to make a decision. I'm not going to make it. I'll be rejected. Yeah? So some people have this helper mentality. Some people have this overachievement mentality. Some people are just so good at systems, technically, knowledge is power. And if I'm not the best at this knowledge, and if someone else knows it, I'll always be slightly ahead of them, then they get the role as well. But their perceived missingness is, I have to be the best at this work still.
Okay.
So this is what plays out at the senior role, is they're still this expert in their technical field, but they've got absolutely no idea what's driving them. And therefore they have absolutely no idea what's driving and motivating their team. They don't know how to influence authentically. It's either through force or again, letting everybody else make the decisions, right? So it's stepping back too far, almost aloof. Yeah?
Yes. Yeah.
So there is always this perceived missingness that is born through the childhood stories and introjected through social networks and so on, that it's a lack internally that is sought to be replaced through external actions. And it's one of four things. It's the need to be loved and liked and belong as the first, the need to be worthy, valued, seen in a particular way. For me, I needed to be seen in a particular way because I was being seen as the fat kid and no one liked. So there's two there.
Yeah.
Safety, trust, security, financial security, profit. Yeah. And then pleasure and pain. And it's avoiding the pain and seeking the pleasure. Because I was hurt as a kid violently or otherwise. And so I don't want to feel that again. So I'm going to distract myself in this certain way. Sometimes it's addiction to substances. Sometimes it's addiction to work and achievement. Yeah.
Yeah.
So those four things. Now, back to your point on attachment, we form ways in which we either avoid or get those needs which become wants met. And then once we've learned certain ways through the teens and the 20s and the 30s and the 40s and the decades of patterns that are actually going to get that met, we become attached to the identity that has formed that.
Okay.
Burnout occurs when that attachment no longer works. Burnout happens when the ways in which we have learned to get those needs met no longer works.
Okay.
So it got to the point for me that the way I got that need met, which was, you had a question before of, did you know you were burning out at that point, or were you happy? I didn't even know, but it was just that whatever I'm doing is working. And then it got to the point where it was no longer working. There was so much guilt, so much shame, so much avoidance, and so much seeking for something to move away from something else, that it got to the point that the way in which the needs and the wants were met was no longer working. That is the sign. So when there's a reaction or a disturbance or a trigger in the mind-body system, that something is no longer working, but it doesn't mean you're a piece of shit.
Yeah. So you're out of balance.
Out of alignment.
Out of alignment. And there's many ways that someone can get to that point, as you've covered.
Yeah.
What are the signs of burnout?
So the symptoms,
and
you can pick them up at any point from teens to any point. You can start to notice them. The first one is when we're distracted. So when we're distracted from what's true for us, and we're performing in a certain way that we think other people are going to respond to, that will help us fit in or help us be seen in a certain way.
Yeah.
So the distractions are the inner distractions, the beliefs, the identities, the life stories, the memories, the habits, the patterns, the programs that we have formed to try and, let's call it the map of the territory, right? We've created this map in our mind that we are now applying to a territory that allows us to navigate it, like your iPhone walking around the streets, right? We've crafted that map, and we've sought other people to chuck into this map, right? Now, everyone else's input into that map and everything that I have remembered about the way in which I apply that map to the territory is eventually a distraction when the map no longer works. Yeah? So at that point, the distraction from what's actually happening out here is this disconnect between the map and the territory. So that plays out in a disturbance in the body, which is an odd, let's call it a disproportionate reaction to the stimulus. So let's say, a fly lands on your food. Fuck off. It's just a fly. Don't eat the fly, of course, right? But, it gets to the point where, like kids come up, just give me an hour, right? The map's not working at that point. Mm-hmm. It's starting to go a little bit wrong, yeah? Why are the fucking dishes not done again? All right, now it's starting. Okay, hang on a minute. As a kid, the map's not working when that person doesn't like me. Yeah? The map just needs a little bit of expanding at that point. Not ready to rip the map out just yet, but it's like, hang on a minute, how do you know? Specifically based on what criteria are you using that means that they don't like you? Mm-hmm. Is it possible that they could be having a bad day as well? Expanding the map. Making it a little bit easier to navigate the territory so that when that particular behaviour is seen again by the kid, then they've got another way to view that stimulus, right? So distraction, and the distraction is the disturbance in the body, or when we're seeking to be different to the way that we are at the moment.
So do you think that the distraction is an early sign of burnout?
Of course, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because if it's not addressed, either through the expansion of the map and the way in which you're going to navigate it, then it's going to become the only way that you filter reality.
Yeah, okay. What are the signs?
The second sign, and it's not necessarily the progression of, but it is certainly can come after or before. That is the disconnection from what's true for you. Disconnection from relationships. So for me, it was actual relationships with people. Disconnection from work. The meaning of the work stops to hold energy. The work is the same, but the meaning's changed, right? So that's a disconnection. That's again, maybe the territory's evolved a little bit. It's not quite exactly the same work, but the territory's moving, but you're still taking this conventional meaning making of the job. And so the conventional meaning is no longer matching what's needed.
Yeah.
This is so common in leaders.
Okay.
Right? They get bored of their role, looking for the next challenge. Mm-hmm. So what they seek to do is change the environment to match the map.
Interesting, yeah.
Hey, so they will go, okay, now I need the next challenge. Well, upgrade yourself, and then you'll be able to take this organisation and the team to a level that no one could ever have foreseen before, right? Mm-hmm. Disconnection from relationships, disconnection from work, and fundamentally is the disconnection from the self. What's true for me. Now, see, for Ryan, what was motivating me back then was the financial aspect. Get all the bases met, right? Then you can retire. Then you've got freedom, right? Didn't even know that was necessarily the case, but that's what's instilled in you as, get to the top.
Yeah.
And I could get to the top. Watch me. Mm-hmm. So the conventional meaning of work had changed, but this, what do I actually want? What's actually most important to me was never known.
Okay.
It wasn't, and so in that case, it's not, let's say, a disconnection. It was never actually known what was connected to be disconnected from. So this lack of clarity of what's actually wanted by me, what would really make me happy, to your question, yeah?
It's almost like a loss of meaning in what you're doing, right?
Yes. So this is for the senior executives that watch this, right? When you get all your basic needs met, you even if they're shuddering a little bit, but you got your financial needs met, your relationship needs met, and your value met, right? To be worthy met. Now you start to have space to ask questions of, the fuck am I doing? Psh, there's the Ryan slap, which is what hit me on the couch. Because now it's just doing it for the sake of doing it. I don't even know what I'm doing. I do not even know why I'm showing up to work. I can do it, so now give me the next challenge. So what happens is everyone around you, who's also the boiling frog, starts chucking new challenges at you. Oh, go and run this part of the business or run that part of the business. Yeah. Now, if you're asleep at the wheel at that point, you're the boiling frog, then that's quite attractive. Yeah. But it doesn't. It's still seeking to fulfil this perceived missingness outside of us.
Yeah.
So the disconnection from what you actually want, what you actually are, and what's always already here in terms of you're seeking the love, you're seeking the value, you're seeking the safety and security and so on. When we forget that we already have that, like the love is there in the kids and the love is there in the work, we're just looking beyond it, we're disconnected from what's happening. We're disconnected from life. We're disconnected from self. And at that point, there is absolutely no amount of external stuff that can fill that void. So people who don't find that will lead the rest of their lives trying to seek it through acquisition, objects, different job, change the wife, change the car, get the new Rolex. Boom, boom, boom. I'll reconnect to that for 5 minutes and then I'll get the next thing. Yeah?
Yeah.
All of that. And again, that's the problem is not doing those things. The problem is when we seek to make that the solution to what's actually missing.
Yep.
So the third thing is then when that plays out enough, the distractions, as in we're seeking to be something other than we are, and the disconnection from what we actually are, the body is getting triggered so much, the map is just, now it's fucking working nowhere. The territory's changed so much, the map is so old and out of date that we don't even know how to use it. In fact, I've lost energy to even attempt to use the map. So now I'm going to go back to the distraction and I'm going to have a distracting wine or 2 bottles of. Yeah? Oh, that makes the piece of shit map that I've got way better. In fact, now I can see cartoons in it. All right, so that's an easy crutch, okay? And you know, the binge drinking habits here were part of that. It's like, well, I've deserved it. I'm going to let loose, or maybe holidays, or whatever the distraction is, away from the environment.
Yeah.
So what happens is all of that kind of plays against each other, and then the next thing is the body really starts to shudder.
So you're using a crutch, alcohol, drugs, whatever it might be.
Or like marathon running.
Yeah.
Yeah? Well, not touching alcohol, but geez, I'll run 4 marathons this month.
Yeah. So it comes out in different ways, different people.
Of course. Distracting. Yeah. So the distractions and the disconnection kind of play off against each other till you get to the point that you're completely out of alignment with reality. And so now it's disharmony.
Yeah.
That lack of alignment is disharmonious, which is termed dis-ease. So it is actually fundamentally then realised through the body and the relationships and the environment that's expressing from here as disease.
And this is when it properly hits.
Boom. Now, or at least you can see it and you go, holy shit.
Yeah.
You know, so the binge drinking episodes here would be so guilty and ashamed after them that it would take so much focus on what was perceived to be the right way to be seen, back at the gym, working long hours, love the family, be there.
So you responded like that. What about people that get to that point where they just can't cope?
Okay, so they did. So what happens is the boiling frogs, they go and jump in another pot where someone else is boiling. They keep each other company. I'll bring the red wine tonight. Right. So the social acceptance of that at certain levels is actually keeping the sanity together, so they're not lying on the floor by themselves. But it's not the way through it. That's just the way to sustain the current way of being, right?
Yeah.
So the dis-ease can play out in terms of, relationships falling apart even more, depression, anxiety, judgment, resentment, addictions. All
of these things very common.
Burnout. The worst cases of burnout is then the result. So anything that's an expression of that, even in a short form, as a distraction, is on its way to disease.
Okay. So, what can we do to address it?
Good. So the clear leader formed initially after the first introduction to purpose and values and meaning and human motivation and the fact really that it was painted that is actually a normal part, maybe not to the extent that I was going, a normal part of human evolution, but people aren't taught how to navigate it. People aren't taught how to get out of or initially expand the map and then ultimately destroy the map altogether. And so initially it's through the diving into the inner world of what is motivating you to express the behaviours that are no longer working for you.
Mm-hmm.
So there are some conventional strategies usually that would say, well, just take a break. Make sure you got your diet, exercise, sleep, etc. They are fundamentally required to do that. But for people that are in the depths of burnout, it's not just a matter of them changing habits.
Yeah, you can go on holiday for a week, but you're not going to relax.
No, not in the week. Or even if they go on holiday for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
It hasn't resolved the problem.
Yeah.
It's just distracted them enough from the current challenge that they've had some space. It's very helpful space. But what happens is they then take the same map back to a different territory, or take the same map back to the territory. 6 months later, they've tried to navigate the same thing. They've created the same problem for themselves and everyone around them, and then they're burning out.
So what's required is a change in mindset.
Initially, so let's call it, it's mindset, but it's also, you see the habits are embodied. So mind-body habits that have formed the decades of reactions to certain stimulus.
Yep.
So it's a matter of going in first, the inner game, to understand how you're constructing that identity. What's motivating you to perform in the way that you're performing? What are you trying to meet that's not already there? I don't have enough money yet. I've got debts. Of course you've got debts. Why do you have debts? Are you living above your means? No, but when I get to this other point, then I'll have enough. Okay?
Yeah.
Right, so there's already a gap between now's not it, so when I get there, I'll be there. Yep. So it's how are you making now not it? What's missing for you that's causing this behaviour and this persona and this identity and the attachments to the ways in which you're showing up? I need to be seen in a certain way. I need to be liked in this particular way. I need to be safe and secure financially in this way. And I really don't want that when I retire. Avoiding the pain, right? Visualising something that's better than now. How are you constructing your reality? How are you creating your map of the territory right now? And how is it not working for you? That's the inner. What's your map, mindset, and ways in which you're applying that map to the territory? People have never heard of that before. Beliefs, values, memories, identity structures, habits, patterns, programs, all of that stuff is invisible until it's brought into awareness.
So from the work you've done, Ryan, and you're working with a number of executives at the moment around this, what would you have done differently back then in the run-up to that point from what you know now?
Yeah, it's impossible to say. But what might have helped is a skillful means from a leader or someone who could see it that could help that person navigate the ridiculous ups and downs that were happening for Ryan at that time.
Yeah.
The highs and the lows were so big that there was some, close to rock bottoms and some close to ridiculous high mountains. So what would be different would be to know that there is another way, and you don't actually have to give up what you're good at. You don't actually have to give up performing in the CISO role just because you no longer identify with it. In fact, what happens is, with the freedom and the spaciousness that arises from knowing that the map is in the way and the attachments and the identities in the way, is this let's call it space to create this clarity, hence the clear leader, of what's next without worrying about what's missing, what fears are going to get in the way, what's going to be taken away from me, what if I lose the job, what if I fuck up the decision, what if I hire the wrong person, what if I am late tonight, all of the guilt and shame and anxiety that comes with that. When that's out of the way, you're able to show up at work, at home, in the socials, in this space, without any expectations. You're able to be fully right here, right now, not worried about what anybody else thinks.
Yeah.
So back then, to know that there is a way to be fully present, I can only expect that for someone needs to be ready to hear it. And this is what the corporate psychologist said that it can't be forced on the executives.
Mm-hmm.
There has to be the knock at the door of burnout that says, hey, dude, this ain't working anymore. Yeah.
But so this program as well is also, it's aimed at execs.
Yep.
But it's also can provide tool sets for those execs to help their teams.
Exactly right.
As a leader.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So primarily execs because they're getting the knock at the door usually. It might happen earlier. It might happen in your early 20s or something like that. And the knock at the door is, hey, there must be a different way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or what am I doing? Or whatever the question is that's coming to the person at the time that says what's happening at the moment is no longer working. And it does require a bit of courage to let go of the old way, to disidentify with who I take myself to be. If you have an awareness or the awakening that I'm not that, yet I still go back into the world pretending to be that, then you're going to keep the old ways alive. Yeah, it's not good enough to say, I know I shouldn't be doing that, but I'm going to choose to do it. Well, it's bullshit. You haven't chosen to do it. You've habitually just engaged in the same thing. Yep. So executives are generally in a position where they are ready enough, might have financial needs met, might have stability in most of their world that meant, well, I'm okay to step back for a little bit, self-reflection, a little bit of inner work, clear the distractions that are in the way so that I, on behalf of, being able to show up fully present. So the executives are the ones that are usually ready to engage in the work, financially, but also a personal readiness that says I've had enough of the old map and I'm ready to make the change.
Yeah.
Now those that are engaging and where this is mostly pointed at are mid-career executives.
Yes.
Not those that are ready to go play golf for the rest of their life.
Yeah, so you might be talking here about new managers, new leaders in...
Not so much
that? Because they're also going to be suffering
CEOs
from...
that might be between 35, 45, 50 maybe.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so those they might have the young kids or but the debts are paid off, but it's like there's more to give, but they might have another 2 or 3 big CEO roles.
So that's where you feel that you can bring the most value, is it?
Yes, and the reason why is now they can actually start to make a universal impact with this awareness and freedom and clarity and choice and authenticity. Now they can bring their whole team through it, leadership team. It takes someone with courage to be able to, even use words like awakening in their business, right? Fuck, you've just lost half your execs because they're still financially motivated. Yeah. So again, you can't force it on it, but you've got to have someone who can hold all the different perspectives. So if, say, 2 of the 7 are not ready to engage in that sort of work, then the leader must be able to hold that. So it's not about actually disengaging. Even though you'll lose the attachment to the identities and the beliefs and the map, you're actually free to engage in reality as reality and go back into the work with a clarity that you've never had before. If I was to ask you now, and you don't need to answer it, but you would know exactly what you need to do at your work, and there might be 2 or 3 things that are just stopping you from doing it, right? If you had the freedom...
Explain what you mean by that.
Okay,
you aiming that specifically at me?
Well...
Or is that a general...
Well, you'll have an insight. You'll have an insight right now, okay?
Okay.
If you had no fear, no worries about implications, and check that the car park is still active.
Yeah.
Outside, 20 minutes. If you had no fear, no worry about what anyone thought about your decision, people are going to leave or clients are going to leave or, how's this podcast is going to get 1 fucking like instead of 20,000, right?
Yeah.
None of that exists, right? Because all of that's the map. With your business, life, whatever it's going to be, you would, with that spaciousness that you have, this is what I'm going to do today.
It'd be very different for sure.
Right. That is the truth.
But it might be the truth, but then there's social constructs, right?
That are holding it in place.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
But there's also, you're going to be, if you're running a business or, you've got parameters around what you need to do to get the job done.
Correct.
Whether you're a cybersecurity engineer, a CISO, a CISO, whatever you do, there's still things that you need to do to get that done.
Yes.
So you're still working around that. There's still a map there in that.
There's still a map there, but so now what you can do is write down what it is you would do. It would be different, is what you said. Write down exactly how it would be different.
I'll be at the beach, I think.
It's no business. Yeah. You might. That might actually be a true expression. Okay, because what happens when you're seeking to do something just because it's ought to be done, people might change jobs.
Are you saying about, they may.
People may change jobs because they go, actually, I'm just doing this to prove something. I could go and do that, earn a different amount. I could be at the beach 3 times a week, and this is what I want to do. Now, eventually that's going to wear off.
Yeah.
Because everyone's potential is actually well beyond the beach. Yeah? Because the beach is avoiding actually their true
So really people need to redefine their goals or really understand what's really important to
what
them.
is true for them.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
actually true.
Yeah.
Now we're getting to the crux of this as we wrap this up. When you are out of alignment with what's true for you, burnout equals guaranteed. So get really clear on what's true for you. Otherwise, you're going to be kicking the can down the road until you're lying on the floor. Yeah?
So what can people that are listening to this, watching this, thinking, they might be thinking, oh, look, I think I've got some of that. I'm almost at the edge of burnout or at the start of burnout.
Yeah.
I'm feeling stressed. I'm not enjoying what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I feel I have to do this. What would your advice be?
Yeah. Get some space. So this is where the space actually helps from the environmental distractions.
Yeah.
It might be a weekend away or a week off or something. So where you actually have some solitary time to inquire self. This is if you're not going to engage a coach. Inquire with yourself, what do I really want? Not to prove anything. If I could do anything without the fear, without the distractions, what do I really want?
Yeah.
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 And then what's important about that? And then keep asking what's important till you get to the bottom line. What's important about that? What's even more important about that? Yeah? Then ask the question, what's missing right now? What do I sense is missing? And one of the 4 things, right? Loved and belong, to be seen, valued, safe and secure, pleasure and pain. What is actually missing? Yeah? How do you know it's actually missing? Can you be absolutely true and certain that that is missing? Yeah? With nothing missing. Go back to the first question, what do you really want? And then do it. And now what comes up is all these other things. I can't do that. I wouldn't pay the bills and all this other stuff. And they're all the fears and the constructs and whatever else that you can't just ignore, to your point. You actually have to maybe gradually let them go, change them, shift them, whatever else. But it really is about getting in touch with what is absolutely true for you and doing it. If you're doing it on behalf of a perceived lack to prove something to yourself or somebody else, then of course that's going to lead to burnout.
Yeah, that's great, Ryan. Thanks for joining us, Ryan, today. If you want to reach out to Ryan, you can contact Ryan either via his website, which is
theclearleader.com.au, on LinkedIn.
Yep,
Facebook,
and I'll post
IG,
a link to it at the bottom of the link at the bottom of the
thingy.
Link thingy. Yeah. No, fantastic. Thanks, mate.